The stomach channel consists of 6 branches. The first arises at the nose, receives the Taehee and the eye, follows the outside of the nose, enters the upper teeth, loops around the mouth to Ren 24, retreats to follow the lower cheek, then to stomach 5, stomach 6, goes up in front of the ear, crossing gallbladder 3, following the hair border to arrive at the forehead. This is surprisingly, for some, the main channel. It connects all the orifices so that we can take in the world, the eyes, the nose, the mouth, the ears, and it brings it to the brain, to do 24, Shenting, the courtyard of the Shen. This does describe the function of the stomach, to take in the world, to digest it, and to make it our own. The second branch starts at stomach 5, runs down the throat to stomach 9 and stomach 12, down the diaphragm, affiliating with the stomach and networking with the spleen. The third, so-called straight branch, starts at stomach 12, down to the breast, the side of the navel, and enters stomach 30. The fourth branch arises at the mouth of the stomach, which is generally considered to be the pyloric sphincter, goes down inside the abdomen, arriving and joining at stomach 30, then down to the thigh, to stomach 31, the thigh gate, stomach 32, the crouching rabbit, to the knee and the kneecap, following the lower leg, adhering to its outside, to the foot instep, entering the space of the inside of the middle digit. Note that the description is not of stomach 45, but of the space between the third and the second toes. The inside space of the middle toe, that is the space between the second and the third toes. The fifth branch leaves 3 tsun below the knee to enter the outside space of the third toe. The final branch departs at the top of the instep and enters the big toe to come out at its tip. This suggests that the points on the throat belong to the second branch that goes from stomach 5 to the stomach, which means that stomach 9, stomach 10, 11, and 12 would all have a direct correlation to the stomach. This pathway seems to correlate with the vagus nerve, although the vagus nerve would be permeating more than just the stomach and the spleen. The chest points would belong to the third branch, the one that starts from stomach 12 and goes down to stomach 30, while the thigh points are on the fourth branch, the one that goes from the stomach's mouth to the toe, the inside space of the third toe. I would also place the abdominal points on this branch rather than the branch that includes the chest points. For one thing, the chest points are 2 tsun further out than the abdominal points. Also, the branch that goes from stomach 12 to stomach 30 and includes the chest points seems to be associating the Xingqiu in the chest and stomach 30, the hub of qi, and it is not associated with the stomach and digestion so much, whereas the points on the abdomen do seem to be digestive in nature, and hence it is easy to associate them with a branch that starts at the stomach and goes down to the thigh, describing digestion and intestines. Do stomach 36 to stomach 41 belong to this branch that starts at the stomach, or to the branch that starts at stomach 36? That would depend on where you place these points. If you take them right next to the bone, on the medial edge of the tibialis anterior, then they are on the branch that starts at the stomach. If you take these points lateral to the tibialis anterior, as many people do, then these points are on the branch that starts at stomach 36. I tend to like them snug to the tibia, so they are on the branch that starts on the stomach, because that is the branch that has a direct correlation to the digestive organs. I also tend to think of stomach 40 as simply a point on the branch that is more lateral, and not on the channel that is doing some sort of zigzag down to stomach 39, then up and out to stomach 40, then down to stomach 41. But rather that one line comes down from stomach 36 to stomach 41, and another is more lateral, and stomach 40 is on that branch, and that it is not sequential to stomach 39. The width between these two branches on the lower leg is suggested to be the width of the middle toe, as one branch comes to the inside of the middle toe and the other to the outside of the middle toe. Though stomach 1, Xingqiu, receiving tears, suggest its relationship to the eyes, and the eyes themselves being an organ of perception, therefore it should have a strong relationship to pain and to the gait. Cheng, to support, to receive, to inherit, is utilized mostly on the bladder channel in terms of supporting our gait. There are also bladder 6, Chengguang, receiving the light, gallbladder 18, Chengling, receiving the soul, and Ren 24, Chengjiang, receiving the liquids, which are all in the head. Qi, to cry, or tears, is composed of standing and water. When tears come, water comes, our gait is shaken. This character appears in gallbladder 15 and 41, the head and foot Ling Qi, the facing of the tears. This is the first official point on the stomach channel, and the theme here is in receiving from the eyes. But we should bear in mind that large intestine 20 is actually the first point on the channel, so welcoming the fragrance or bringing in the sense of smell is part of the picture as we make our journey up to the brain. Sibai, stomach 2, the 4 whites, seems to refer to the white of the eyes, of which we can say there are 4, above, below, to the left, and to the right of the pupil. Bai, white, is the color of the light when the sun rises. Gallbladder 14, Yang Bai, is another white point that is above the eyes. That said, stomach 2 reflects the sinuses more commonly than the eyes. Stomach 3, Chil Yao, the huge bone hole, is another Liao point. The zygomatic arch hosts a few of these Liao points. Liao, as we have seen, is not really a hole in the bone, but rather a place where soaring takes place, where the sound of the wind is amplified. The sinus cavity is one such area. It is very much like a conch, creating a resonance in the skull. It is also related to the nose and to the smell, and the zygomatic and sphenoid area are highly innervated. Besides stomach 3, we have small intestine 18, Chuan Liao, which is just next to it, and 2 He Liaos, large intestine 19, the grain Liao, and Sanjiao 22, the harmony Liao, which are on the edges of the zygoma. Stomach 3 reflects the sinuses, and pressure pain here is resolved using the immune points, points around the navel, or gallbladder 40. Stomach 4, Di Zong, the earth store, is a point many people use quite extensively for facial paralysis. I personally have little experience with this point. Di Zong is the name of a bodhisattva who is the bodhisattva of perseverance, the earth store, Akshiti-garbha. He helps people in the hell realms. The character used for earth store bodhisattva, while pronounced the same as stomach 4, uses a different character, related to the character Zang, as in the organs, the Zang organs. The corner of the mouth expresses our capacity to undertake, to endure, and to accept. This is what Bodhisattva Di Zang does. When stomach 4 is relaxed, the mouth can smile, and the mood is more embracing, less congesting. The Buddha is always depicted as having a smile on his lips, not one of laughter, but one of great acceptance, of easefulness. The Buddha is one who sees the suffering in the world and who is able to embrace it. Di Zang, stomach 4, reflects this capacity in that when we grind our jaws, we tighten up, and when we relax the corners of the mouth, we soften our mental attitude as well, and we are ready to embrace and to smile. So while one can see that the naming of stomach 4 is related to the ability to embrace and accept, whether this translates to needling stomach 4 and producing that effect is not clearly demonstrated clinically. Stomach 5, Da Ying, the Great Welcome, is one of 3 points that have welcome in them. The other 2 being large intestine 20, welcome fragrance, and stomach 9, welcome person. While large intestine 20, welcome fragrance, is clearly related to fragrance, stomach 9, welcome person, is somewhat less clear. We believe that the welcoming here is either of the carotid artery or of the thyroid, which suggests to welcome one's transition from childhood to adult. But what are we welcoming in stomach 5, the Great Welcome? We can have various interpretations. For example, we can say that it has to do with chewing, and therefore with greeting or welcoming food, something that would fit with the idea of the stomach channel. We can also see that stomach 5 is where we have collected the input from the 3 sense organs, the nose, the eye, and the mouth, and are now on the way to the brain, with 1 sense organ left to be collected, which is from the ears. So we're welcoming the sense organs, the unadulterated sense organs. In China, in ancient China, where most people did not read, learning was done orally and not so much visually. So the senses of the eye, the nose, and the tongue are uninfluenced, whereas what we hear can influence how we interpret things. So up to this point, the Great Welcome, we have taken in experiences that are basically spontaneous in a way. And from here, a branch goes down to the stomach via stomach 9, taking that unadulterated input down. And the main branch will continue to pick up the input from the ear, which can be adulterated because it introduces more consciousness, more learning experiences. Is stomach 5 welcoming something that is related to the facial or artery or the nerve, the facial nerve? It sits on the branch that controls facial expression of the lower face as well as taste perception. And like stomach 9, it is located on the facial artery, which arises from the carotid artery. Hence again, it is related to stomach 9. The hyoid bone and the facial nerve are both derived from the second arch in the embryo. So again, we see that there is a connection between stomach 5 and stomach 9. And perhaps therefore the ancients decide they both deserve a similar name. Stomach 6, Jia Che, the jaw car, is where we would be squeezing the masseter muscle and developing TMJ. This is an area that is important to check on all patients, not only those who grind their teeth, because tension here reflects tension in the nervous system. Tension on stomach 6 can be resolved using kidney 9 and Sanjiao 8, 1/3 below the elbow, as well as a point just behind gallbladder 21. Stomach 7, Xiaguan, the lower gate, is the gate of the mandible. So again, this seems to be in reference to our ability to move our jaws, the mouth, and to chew. Toowei, stomach 8, the head linkage, or the head corner, as Ellis prefers to translate it, is where the stomach channel starts to move into the brain. The next point is Du 24, Shenting, where the stomach main channel ends. Ling Shu 33 speaks of the brain as being the sea of marrow and having 2 points to it, Du 16 and the cap of the head. Some people suggest that this is Du 20, but a cap or a lid suggests that it is somewhere off center and we cannot tell just how far off it is, because it must have some width if it is a cap. Obviously, stomach 8 would be the furthest possible perimeter for a lid over the brain, and this lid can be anywhere inside a circle with a radius that touches stomach 8. The character for gai, which is the lid or a cap that is being used, also means to build or to imprint. So it suggests that we might be looking for dents or imprints in a skull if we want to affect the marrow. The points Kiiko associates with dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, gallbladder 15, 16, and 17, and which act to calm pain perceptions, are also points that I associate as marrow points. I will check stomach 8 as a possibility to add to any treatments that involve the idea of marrow, be it for the brain, the spine, or the nerves, which are an extension of marrow. Stomach 9, Yen Ying, to welcome one's person, is on the second branch of the stomach channel, the one that starts at stomach 5, comes down to the throat, to the diaphragm, to the stomach and the spleen. This branch has a close similarity to the path of the vagus nerve, and stomach 9 and stomach 10 reflect that. Stomach 9 has a very unique name. The character person, Yen, is not common in acupuncture points, and the only other point to have this character is Du 26, Renjiang, the man's center, being in between, in the center of the nose, our breath, and our mouth, our food, meaning the two materials that define our ability to be alive, to be a person. Stomach 9 sits over the thyroid, which controls the metabolism of air and food. Of course, should stomach 9 spill, the carotid artery would be bleeding, and life will come to an end. So this is a point where we not only welcome life, but we can also, so to speak, welcome the end of life. Stomach 9 can be a reflex of the thyroid, in which case I would use kidney points to treat it. It can also be a reflex of SCM or vagus nerve congestion, in which case I would use opposite side Sanjiao point, either Sanjiao 8, 1/3 below the elbow, or Sanjiao 5. It can also be a reflection of what we might call primitive reflex, that is, unconscious or very strong primitive urges. Bulimic or anorexic patients, for example, will often show pressure pain on stomach 9. In those cases, I use the bumps on a stomach line below stomach 36 or 37, the line that we call the stomach chi line, stomach chi points. Stomach 9 itself can also fix the cervical spine, especially C4, so it is related to the phrenic nerve and thus to our breathing and to the state of the nervous system, which the diaphragm can modulate. Stomach 10, Shui 2, like stomach 9, is another area on the SCM that reflects the thyroid or the state of the autonomic nervous system through the vagus nerve. 2 suggests a connection to chong, to dash, to run abruptly, and hence suggests the neck and the throat area. The connection between stomach 10 and water is unclear to me. It is possible that as a reflection of an endocrine function that is in the neck, it represents kidney, water, rushing upwards. Ellis interprets the water character here to be indicative of the pulse of the carotid artery. I tend to talk of stomach 11 and stomach 12 as one unit. I also take stomach 12 just behind the posterior head of the SCM, rather than fortune out, as in the middle of the clavicle. Stomach 11, Qi Shi, the residence of the Qi, sits over the brachial plexus and the scalenes, and this may be why it is the residence of Qi, given that the scalenes are a breathing muscle, and the brachial plexus supplies most of the upper body, the shoulders and the arms. Perhaps surprisingly, Qi is not a common character in point names. Stomach 13, the qi door. Stomach 30, qi chong. Both have qi, which is related to breathing, zongqi. And then we have Ren 6, qi hai, the ocean of qi, and its shu point, UB24, qi hai shu. And we also have kidney 13, the qi cave or the qi hole, qi shui. Sitting on the scalenes, stomach 11 is part of the scalenes plexus that is important to release in any kind of arm problem. This can be done using any or all of spleen 3, lung 8, heart 3, or inner yin. The scalenes area, which will include the scalenes not just between the two tendons, the heads of the SCM, where stomach 11 is, but also behind the posterior head, which is where I take stomach 12. After the area has been released, you can needle it superficially outwards and or apply Acupuncture on it to open further circulation into the arm. The scalenes may also show pressure pain when there is muscular pain anywhere on the body, unrelated to the brachial plexus. This area is a reflection of the fascia, the layer between the skin and the muscles, which is the domain of the spleen. Spleen 3 would be the point to use in cases of muscular pain and pressure pain on stomach 11, stomach 12. A weakness in stomach acid can also reflect and be treated here. Recall that this is on the branch that goes from stomach 5 to the stomach. If there is weak stomach acid, use the ear endocrine point to release the scalenes, then needle stomach 11 or the sensitive spot on the scalenes, just released, superficially outwards. The left side in this case would be the important side to check and treat, as the stomach leans primarily to the left side. I take stomach 11 and 12 pretty much as one point, functionally speaking. Location-wise, I take stomach 12 not above stomach 13 or in the middle of the clavicle, but rather just behind the posterior head of the SCM, where it meets the clavicle. The reason for that is that stomach 12 on the front serves much like Do 14 is on the back. It is the meeting of all the yang. Do 14 is defined as below the 7th cervical vertebrae. That means it is neither on the neck nor on the torso, but in between the two. If one were to take the same energetics and apply it to stomach 12, placing it in the middle of the clavicle would make it very much a point on the torso. Placing it just behind where the posterior head of the SCM meets the clavicle makes the location be between the torso and the throat, just as Do 14 is between the neck and the torso. In observing how older practitioners find this point, you see them applying this principle and simply slide the finger along the clavicle into the neck. Where the finger stops, that is stomach 12 for them. They often land either just lateral to stomach 11 or even on what we would call stomach 11. And indeed, this is a place where one can feel there is a hollow in a dish, although this dip is quite often tight, either because of the way the patient breathes, using the scalenes instead of the breathing diaphragmatically, or due to brachial plexus congestion, due to bad sitting and the screen posture. We're now looking at the third branch of the stomach channel, the one that starts at stomach 12 and goes down to stomach 30. The chest points clearly belong in this branch. I classify the abdominal points on the stomach meridian as belonging on the fourth branch rather than on this branch. Shu Wan 58 says that there are 12 shu points on the chest, 12 on the back, and 12 shu points on the breast. This is rather odd, as most of us think of there being at least 12 shu points on the back, not 2. One for each organ, plus Du Shu, the diaphragm Shu, Ge Shu, Qi Hai Shu, and Guan Yuan Shu. and those should be multiplied by 2, since each point is on both sides of the body. So what is being talked about in Shu Wan 58 is likely about something different, something that has to do with the chest and not much with the organs. Kidney 27 is called Shu Fu, so we can suggest that it is the Shu point for the Fu organs, or of exchange. We then have front Shu points and breast Shu points, 12 of each type. We might assume that given the name of kidney 27, the front Shu points might be on the kidney line, and that the chest-breast Shu points would be on the stomach line. There is really no way to tell, and we do not see these points used popularly as Shu points clinically. However, there is something to this, even if we cannot find a lot of applicability with needles. Since Shu Wan 58 uses the character Shu for pretty much all points it is describing, I believe it is not necessarily suggesting that the front chest has the same kind of Shu points that we associate with the organs on the back. I believe that what is being stated here is simply that the chest, through the act of breathing, the movement of the ribs, has an effect on the whole body. If this movement, if the breath, is constricted, we will not flourish. We need that kind of transportation, Shu, that the chest movement provides. And so, the points on the stomach channel that are on the chest describe a building. It has a door, stomach 13, a garage or a barn, stomach 14, a screen, stomach 15, a window, stomach 16, and a basement or a root, stomach 18. The point names on the outside bladder line also reflect the construction of a house. So both in the front and the back, there is this idea that there are Shu points on the inside and a house outside of them. There is the connotation that these points construct a house. They are essential in maintaining our house, which makes sense when we look at them as being part of the rib cage, which is a house full of our organs, and that they're moving, expanding and relaxing the ribs is what keeps us alive. Of these points, there are 2 that I use regularly. Stomach 13 is used for what we term visceraptosis. This is pressure on the inguinal ligament, stomach 30 area, when the abdomen collapses on it, either from having a very large abdomen or large breasts, or from hysterectomy, or sometimes with many giving birth many times. In all these cases, the lumbar spine is being pushed forward and the abdomen collapses onto the inguinal ligament, creating back and shoulder pain. In these cases, there is pressure pain on stomach 30 and stomach 13 releases it. Stomach 13 is needled superficially up and out along the lower border of the clavicle. This is lifting up the abdomen. One can also look at it as the beginning of the branch, stomach 13, treating the end of the branch, stomach 30, or upper reflecting lower, etc. Stomach 18 on the left side is used in diagnosis of cardiac conditions. It is only used as diagnostic point, and I do not use it in needling. We now arrive at the abdominal points. These can be considered as a continuation of the previous branch, or as points on the 4th branch, which starts at the stomach's mouth. Most texts interpret the stomach's mouth to mean the pyloric sphincter, rather than the esophageal one. If that is the case, then stomach 19 and 20 do not seem to be part of that branch, because they're basically higher than the bottom of the stomach, where the pyloric sphincter is. These 2 points also have a somewhat different theme than stomach 21 and downwards. At stomach 20, Cheng Man, receiving fullness, or accepting satiating, the stomach is full. One starts to feel that fullness. When the stomach cannot contain the food, the feeling moves further up to stomach 19, Burong, not contained. Note that the character Rong also means how we look, our appearance, our countenance. When we eat too much and we choke, we turn gray, and our countenance shrinks. Stomach 21, Liang Men, the beam gate, starts the series of Men, gate points. This is the area of the digestive tract where there are lots of valves, lots of gates. The Liang beam indicates the pancreas, which is like a horizontal beam. Stomach 21 is over the pancreas. But right behind stomach 21 would actually be the stomach, and only behind that would we find the pancreas. So stomach 21 reflects both the stomach and the pancreas. A beam across stomach 21, where the tissue is raised or puffy like a horizontal beam, indicates a weak pancreas, and in severe cases pancreatitis. This is the tissue all the way across, not just on stomach 21 one side, but going horizontal across between both stomach 21s. For this, I use kidney 6, kidney 27, spleen 5, and lung 5. Pressure pain on stomach 21, just one stomach 21, indicates gastric ulcer if it is on the left, since the stomach leans to the left, or a duodenal ulcer on the right. Weak stomach acid can also reflect on left stomach 21. Use spleen 4 and pericardium 6 for pressure pain on stomach 21. And for ulcers, also release the SCM using Sanjiao 8, 1/3 below the elbow, which is releasing the second branch of the stomach channel, releasing the SCM. For weak stomach acid, add left ear endocrine, left stomach 11, and left stomach 36. Stomach 34, Xingqiu, the beam hill, can also resolve stomach 21, Liang Men, the beam gate. They have a connection through their name. Stomach 22, Guan Men, the gate of gate, is the Oddi sphincter on the right. The Oddi sphincter is a gate of gates, in that there are multiple entries here. The common bile duct, the pancreatic duct, and just above it is the pyloric sphincter. Right stomach 22 is an essential point for diabetes, and is also used for muscular pain and bruise-like pain anywhere in the body. Stomach 22 itself can be released with spleen 3. Stomach 23, Taehee, the Great Supreme, has the kind of name we would not have expected from a point that has gained relatively little popularity. This shows us that the naming of points was probably subjective and may not have always gone through some ratification process where everybody agrees. Someone saw this point as the Great Supreme, the ancestor of all things. What was it that they saw that we are no longer relating to? And if we did resolve this question, would it offer us radically new ways of seeing or treating the body? Before trying to answer that question, let's look at stomach 24, Huayou Men, the slippery flesh gate, as this is another gate in the series of points that are over the jejunum. The beam gate, stomach 21, the gate of gate, stomach 22, and the slippery flesh gate, stomach 24. Obviously, this is an area of digestion which has lots of valves and movements, therefore lots of gates. The slippery flesh gate appears to refer to some kind of flesh that slides, that is slippery, that is smooth. Certainly the jejunum, when pulled out, say in surgery, would fit that description. Or perhaps, more so, would be the mesentery tissue. I believe stomach 24 could be correlated with the mesentery. Nagano used stomach 24 on the right side for pressure pain and or pulsation on Ren 9, Shui Fun, or pulsing around the navel. Since the flesh is slippery, pulsing, use the slippery flesh gate. Use the right side because the pulsing is blood, and the right side is the blood side in the system used by Nagano. Nagano is my grandfather teacher, and as much as I have tried, changing location, needling angle, I have not found stomach 24 to produce great results as far as pulsing on Ren 9 in my own clinic. But still, I trust that it must have worked for Nagano. The pulsing around the navel is a sign of weakness in the mesentery, so it seems Nagano also thought of stomach 24 as relating to the mesentery. When we look at stomach 23, Taehee, it might be useful to look at what Taehee connotes rather than what Taehee is. The Taehee gives birth to the 2, then to the 3, and then to the myriad of all things, the 10,000 things. 1 is the 10,000, or the innumerable. When we look at the jejunum, the small intestine, it is like the 10,000 things, the innumerable folds. And yet the small intestine is also the 1, in that it is the center of absorption. All nourishment comes from here to empower the rest of the body. Therefore, I believe that Taehee, stomach 23, might have meant to suggest the small intestine, while stomach 24 was meant to suggest the mesentery surrounding it. Another way to look at Taehee is that the 1 is in the center of the myriad of all things. The intestines have a circular movement to them, where the center is being the navel. The corners of that movement would be said to be stomach 23 and stomach 27. When one does Nali Kriyas, one would be activating these areas as one is squeezing and moving the intestines. Using this idea, Sawada had a treatment he called Munji treatment, based on moving the intestines around stomach 23 and 27 in a circular motion. The Munji is the character 1, which is pronounced the same as the 1 for myriad, and it represents whirling circular movement. I do not use the Munji treatment much, and there is also some question as to whether Sawada used stomach 23 or stomach 24, with Kiiko saying now it should be stomach 24 rather than stomach 23. Either way, I believe that stomach 23 still represents the jejunum and its circular movement, as would be exaggerated by Nali Kriyas. Stomach 25, Tianshu, the heavenly axis, level with the navel, represents the hinge between heaven and earth. Daheng, spleen 15, the great horizontal, suggests a similar idea. Other hinges, Shu, include L1, Xuanshu, which is Du 5, the suspended pivot, which is behind the navel, though slightly higher, and at T10, we have Zhongshu, the central axis, Du 7, and then we also have at the inguinal, gallbladder 27, the 5 pivots, Wushu. Stomach 25 is a very popular point and is used by many people because of geomancy. It creates equilateral triangles with Ren 12 or with Ren 6, or it mirrors stomach 36 in such triangles. The Earth Scroll has these kinds of triangles for upper, middle, and lower jiaos. I use it primarily as a point that reflects acute eyesight decline. Now that we are below the navel, rather than gates, what we are encountering are mounds and obstructions. This bears out clinically. Stomach 26 and 27 tend to show congestion and or lumps. Stomach 26, Weiling, the outer mound, and stomach 27, Dajiu, the big grate, reflect accumulations here. It is possible that the ancients might have been thinking also of stool that is not moving properly and creating congestion, or piles. Stomach 27 might also be referring to the cecum, being the big grate, because the cecum is a large one in comparison to all the other portions of the intestines when we consider the diameter. On the left side, stomach 26 and 27 reflect what is called oketsu, stagnant, non-physiological blood. This is because the liver on the right side is a spongy organ that takes in the blood via the hepatic portal vein. And when the blood is viscous, the flow into the liver is being obstructed, is being delayed, and it reflects further down and to the left through the portal vein. In serious cirrhosis, the backup would extend all the way to the sigmoid and rectal veins, causing hemorrhoids, and in some cases it can also affect upwards, creating esophageal varicosity. This piling of the blood, this viscosity, can be the result of infections, high fevers, repeated bruises and cuts, including surgeries, as well as chemical exposures, including allergies. It is treated through left side liver 4 and left lung 5. On the right side, stomach 26-27 can reflect immunity, as it sits over the intestinal lymph of the appendix. It can also reflect digestion problems, chronic appendicitis, or other inflammatory issues in the intestines, such as dysbiosis. Long-term lung problems can reflect as pressure pain on right stomach 26-27 also, and so does a pelvic shift, and what we can term kidney regenerative capacity weakness. The treatment for each one of these options is different and includes things like the immune points, lung points, spleen 5 and spleen 9, metal water of the spleen, the stomach chi line, and kidney 7, all depending on how the pressure pain on right stomach 26-27 is to be interpreted. At stomach 28, Shui Dao, the water pathways, there is again the idea of flow. I suspect that this water passage was in reference to the ureter. Although the ureter extends from way above here and goes a bit further down, there is a change of texture at this level due to the shift between the lumbar spine and the sacrum, meaning there is now bone and not soft tissue in back of the ureter at this level. Stomach 28 is primarily used for gynecological assessment and reflects the ovaries. The main go-to point to treat the ovaries and alleviate pressure pain reflecting on stomach 28 would be kidney 7 or kidney 10, though of course other points affecting underlying endocrine issues should be considered, for example UB66, or in case of cysts, liver 8. Stomach 29, Gui Lai, returning, can be looked at in different ways. If we take it literally as returning, it is likely because this is where one can feel a pulse. When one strongly lifts the pelvic floor and extends the diaphragm, you can feel a pulse here. This is a common practice in pranayama exercises, and the pulses at stomach 29 are felt until they normalize between both sides. One would retain the breath until one feels that both sides of the pulse are equal. When the abdomen is hollowed out that way, the iliac artery, which splits at about L4, can be felt. Another option is to look at stomach 29 as a gynecological point, something TCM does quite often. Gui is a wife, a woman holding a broom, that has arrived. Lai, which is to come, is originally made of ears of wheat hanging from the wheat plant, so it is the seed hanging to the side, somewhat similar to the ovaries hanging off the stem of the uterus by the fallopian tubes. Stomach 30, Qi Chong, is also named Qi Jie, the Qi hub. What makes it a hub of Qi is the breath, which when the breath is full, the breath will come all the way down to here. Xingqiu, it is described as coming down to stomach 30. Stomach 30 and stomach 29 is the area that is being pressed by the heels when sitting in full lotus and when exercising pranayama. So when we exercise pranayama, this is the area that we're hollowing out. Stomach 30 also represents the psoas, and through the psoas, the diaphragm. This relationship with the breath is what makes stomach 30 the qi hub, qi jie, at least from my perspective. Stomach 30 can show pressure pain on the left side in people with autonomic nervous system disorders, as well as in some cases of cardiac disorders, especially when there's tachycardia. In that case, release stomach 9 first with opposite side sanjiao, either sanjiao 5 or sanjiao 8, 1/3 below the elbow, and use the point under the third toe, as well as the point in the center of the heel. Spleen 10 or points above spleen 10 can also resolve stomach 30 pressure pain. Stomach 30 can also have pressure pain as part of the visceroptosis pattern, where the abdomen is sinking onto the inguinal ligament. In that case, use stomach 13. Structural compression here can cause lack of circulation into the abdomen as well as down into the leg. In that case, release it with liver 4, the immune points, liver 12, and then needle stomach 30 out and down towards liver 12. The points on a stomach channel along the thigh are concerned primarily with the thigh and its usage, how to balance the quads and the hamstrings, how to create a squeeze or lift up the thigh that will come into the perineum and support the organs. Stomach 31, big one, or the gate to the thigh, or the gate to the buttocks, is one of the points that lie at the intersection of the torso and the thigh. Like bladder 36 and gallbladder 29, most of us tend to sink into the hip joint, congesting it and affecting our gait and our capacity to expand the chest as we breathe. Of these, gallbladder 29 tends to affect the chest the most by creating space between the hip and the femur. Bladder 36 tends to be the strongest in affecting the musculature and the posture. Stomach 31, when needled with a face up, the patient being face up, affects the knee as well as the back when there is muscular contracture in the glutes or hamstrings. Needling stomach 31 with a patient on the side will end up being very close to the front of the greater trochanter and will basically become gallbladder 29-like. Stomach 31 is a good point for knee problems that arise from muscle imbalances between the quads and the hamstrings, or from contracture of the sartorius, and pain when there's stretching or bending the knee. For this purpose, stomach 31 can be taken up to 3 fingers below its official location. The stomach chi line and the sacroiliac joint are other areas to look for when there's problem in bending and stretching. Stomach 32, Fu 2, the crouching rabbit, is in the depression that appears in the quads when squatting, hence the name, which suggests the power of the rabbit's back legs, the ability to jump. It is a point that can be used for imbalances between the quads and the hamstrings, and I use it primarily for knee problems. Stomach 33, Yin Shi, the yin market, is one of 2 markets, the other being gallbladder 31, Feng Shi, the wind market. Shi means market, as in economy. It implies accumulation as well as space. The description of the character etymology is that it is to reach or to attain the outer limits, like the countryside. In order to create a hollowness in the pelvic cavity, so as to offer the organ space, the thighs have to be activated. Most of us tend to simply sink into the thighs rather than have them activated with a slight squeeze upwards. This activation is easily created when the feet are pressed down, creating a counter movement upwards in the thighs. We see that in obese patients, when we needle points below the knees, they do not have much of an effect until a point above the knee in the thigh is added. This is because the stimulation from the point below the knee is fighting the downwards pull of gravity, and in an obese person, that pull has greater impact. So activating the thigh allows for a shuttle effect to take place, and the needle in the lower leg starts to work. So we see that the thighs have this capacity of pulling things upwards, that if we can squeeze, we can sort of squeeze the thighs in order to create an upward movement. I believe that gallbladder 31 and stomach 33 are meant to represent this capacity of exchanging up and down vectors and creating hollowness in the lower abdomen. However, in my experience, the point that would get that effect more would not be stomach 33, 3 tsun above the patella, but rather the point on the stomach channel that is level with gallbladder 31. And I use that point together with gallbladder 31 for pain patterns where there is heaviness as well. My first go-to points, however, would be inner yin, which is on the kidney channel level with liver 9, and the market points would be supporting points. Stomach 34, Xingqiu, the beam hill, seems to also suggest the knee. There is the mound of the quads just above the knees, creating a hill, and it is like a beam which supports the patella and the knee. Qiu is a person back to back on a surface, so it suggests support also. Very often we see how this sort of beam collapses onto the knee, pushing more weight into the knee. So I use stomach 34 and spleen 10 as a facelift-like treatment for the knee to help the quads firm and lift so as to support the knee. By name, stomach 34 relates to stomach 21, Guan Men, the beam gate reflecting the pancreas, and indeed stomach 34 can treat pressure pain on stomach 21. There is not much I can contribute to the understanding of stomach 35, do B, the calf's nose, which one assumes is related to the location which looks like the nostrils. The character Du is a cow that is being sold, meaning it is to be sacrificed. So perhaps there is some interesting story besides this point location. I use stomach 35 for diagnosis of knee problems rather than for treating it. So if I find pressure pain on stomach 35, I will choose points that will release that pressure pain on stomach 35. Lateral knee pain tends to suggest the use of gallbladder 41. Knee pain in general, especially around the patella, suggests the use of stomach 41 and spleen 5. Stomach 36 is another point I have little to contribute to its understanding. The name 3 miles suggests a capacity for regulating. I tend to use points along the stomach channel below stomach 36, all the way down to stomach 41, where there may be bumps along the bone, for either knee pain or for pulse that lacks a wave texture, that hits the fingers without a round form, a rounding feeling. This is called lack of stomach qi in the pulse, and needling the bumps along the stomach channel tends to restore the movement in the pulse. So I look at the whole border of the tibia with the tibialis anterior as regulating the movement of the pulse, boosting its movement, which corresponds to the idea of this area being the sea of blood or the sea of the chong. These points are also used for allergies or other problems that have clear relationship to seasonal changes. Stomach 37 and stomach 39, above and below the great empty. We might ask, what is this empty or falseness that is being referred to here? Ellis thinks it is some hollow in the shin, and that may well be the case. It could also refer to the fact that these points are the lower head points of the large intestine and small intestine, and perhaps with some idea of the intestines needing to be empty or always emptying. Practically speaking, since I use this area to bring back a wave, a rolling quality, a movement to the pulse, the emptiness reflected here for me is the lack of stomach qi, lack of wave in the pulse. So I'm relating it more to a deficiency in the pulse. Not a deficiency in substance, as say a hollow or a weak pulse would suggest, but a deficiency in the actual movement quality. And as one might expect a point that treats empty Shu conditions, stomach chi points do a better job when adding direct moxa on them. Stomach 38, Jiaokuo, the section or ribbon of the mouth, is still part of the same stomach chi line. Given that the point lies between stomach 37 and 39, the lower hair points of the intestines, I like Ellis's idea of it representing some passage between the small intestine and large intestine, perhaps some narrowing, though I have not found the clinical reflection of that. On the right side, the area of stomach 38 is a good supporting point for both appendix and gallstone issues, both of which are sectional passages or mouths. Stomach 40, Feng Long, means plenty or abundant. One presumes it is the reference to the musculature of stomach 40. There is also the idea that Feng Long, like Ye Chue, the name of Lang 7, also means lightning, and the 2 points together can be used for people who have been struck by lightning or had an electric shock. Ye Chue can still be found in dictionaries as having an archaic meaning of lightning, but I did not find that for Feng Long. Stomach 41, Jie Xi, the dividing or liberating creek, like other creek points, is between 2 tendons. As the fire point of the earth channel, it is its tonification point. Stomach 41 was the original stomach chi point, and then it was extended to the bumps along the stomach channel from stomach 40 down to stomach 41, and then all the way from stomach 36 down to stomach 41. As the fire point, it is also a diagnostic point. If there's pressure point pain on stomach 41, it invites the use of stomach 44 and 45, the metal water, to overcome fire. Stomach 41 is a point I use a lot for structural issues. It is an axis on which all our weight hinges. It can be used for hip pain, back pain, as well as heel pain and knee pain. As an axis, it affects stomach 25, Tianshu, the celestial pivot. Perhaps the liberating part in its name refers to the idea that proper use of the ankle joint unties us from our pains. Stomach 42, Changyang, the charging or surging yang, is about the location. If the foot is charged, then there is an upward or yang movement up the body. There has to be a push into the foot and a spread of the feet bones to create that. Stomach 42 is in an unusual location in that it is between the cuneiform and the tarsals. So it is in the place where the spreading of the tarsals and separating them from the heel can take place. This is also where the 6th branch of the stomach channel starts and moves to the big toe, which also reflects the idea of spreading out the foot, spreading the toes. Others feel that the name is derived from the branch of the Chang channel that comes down the leg through stomach 42 and then liver 3, Tai Chang, therefore Chang in both names. Xiangu, stomach 43, the sinking valley, is a Shu stream point. The line of the Shu points of the foot, the ball of the foot, gives us the capacity to spring up and affects the whole gait of the rest of the body. This is where we have spleen 3, Tai Bai, the great white, as in the rising sun, liver 3, Tai Chang, the great surge, and on the lateral side we have the bundling of the bone, UB65, Shu Gu, with stomach 43, the sinking valley, modulating these capacities of rising up and spreading versus containing and bundling. Stomach 43 is a popular TCM point for gynecology as well as for digestion, but I do not use it much as such. I cannot say how stomach 44 Neiting, the inner court, got its name. However, the character Ting appears also in Du 24, Shen Ting, the court of the Sheng, as well as in Ren 16, Zhang Ting, the central court. This suggests that Ting, courtyard, has an association with the heart and the Shen. At Ting, a courtyard, is where people gather to see the emperor. After all, they do not go into the emperor's bedroom, but they come into the courtyard to have an audience with a high authority. Du 23, the upper star, is officially a ghost point by Sun Tzu Miao. Du 24, Shen Ting, which is the top of the stomach channel, is not officially a ghost point. Yet, Du 24 with stomach 24 is a combination I use often as a coda or as a signature for what might call exorcism treatments, clearing patterns of obsessions, addictions, etc. in the Shen. Personally, I do not use it just as a theory, just because I think the person has an obsession or is being possessed by something, but I always make sure that stomach 44 will clear some finding in the body as a way for me to be clear that it is a good choice of a point for this particular patient. Of course, stomach 44 is also known in TCM as a point that clears heat and is applied to heat disturbing the Shen as well, such as in mania. I also use stomach 44 together with stomach 45 as the metal-water combination, especially if there is pressure pain on stomach 41, the fire point. I also use it in cases of constipation, when I will use left stomach 44 and 45 and right gallbladder 43 and 44. Stomach 45, the strict exchange, Li Dui, is another point I do not have a good understanding of. In some ways, it mirrors large intestine 1, Shang Yang, the merchant yang, with the idea of exchange. An exchange is what the stomach is involved in. We start taking in the word and feeding it to our consciousness, as the first branch of the stomach channel describes. But that means that there is an exchange, and it requires a mouth, an opening. The first character, Li, the strict, is far less clear to me as to its role here. What is harsh or severe about the mouth, the opening, or the exchange? This still is a question. However, in the character Li, we see a scorpion under a cliff. The scorpion 1 is the same character as 1 innumerable, or the 10,000. So perhaps this is a reference to the same idea we already saw in stomach 23, Taehee, and refers to restricting the infinite things that we could take from the world, because we shall always have to choose and limit what we take in. So we start the stomach channel with taking in the whole world through all our sense organs, the nose, the eyes, the mouth, the ears, and we end up with the recognition that we will inevitably need to put limits on this input, select what we will accept, or even what we notice. But this is a speculation, and I do not see any other authority, classical or otherwise, bringing up this interpretation. Practically speaking, I use stomach 45 in combination with stomach 44 as the metal-water pair when there is pressure pain on stomach 41, or even along the stomach line below stomach 36, for structural issues along the stomach channel, or for constipation when I use it on the left side with stomach 44 and gallbladder metal water being used on the right side.